Okay, it's time for Daddy Jesse to step in and have a frank conversation with you before I bring Susan in here. Gavin Newsom. I know this is not exactly breaking news, but that guy is going to run for president in 2028. He's one of these people that's just ambitions just dripping out of him and that greased up head of his. He's a horrific human being who has destroyed maybe my favorite state. I just adore California. I know everybody dumps on it, but California's paradise. He has a new podcast out where he's routinely inviting people on the right onto his show, and they keep accepting these invitations when he's obviously trying to moderate himself and appear to be the very reasonable guy instead of the complete scumbag that he actually is. This is all very transparent, and anyone with an IQ above a gerbil can see it, but apparently I had to come on here and say it. Joining me now, Susan Crabtree, author of the book Fool's Gold, California Dream, and Now Threaten Us All. Okay, Susan, first of all, let's discuss Gavin Newsom. For some reason, people buy into this garbage sometimes, and it drives me crazy.
It absolutely drives me, absolutely drives me crazy too. Uh, Everything about Gavin Newsom is performative. It's not performance-based. From his college admission that he lied about, he said it was based on his baseball prowess, to the launch of his wine business with Getty oil money, even though he cries climate change every time he gets a chance to his political rise that was bolstered by Willie Brown and his dad's ties to him, all were handed to him on a silver platter. So that's why he thinks he can run for president via podcast while his state's just in shambles. And we go into this in the book. We talk about, his CCP ties, how he let all these prisoners out under false pretenses during COVID, thousands. Basically, he is directly responsible for all of the state's failures, and they've only accelerated during his time in office.
Susan, how did he get there? California, yeah, it's blue and you have to be a Democrat, but there are many Democrats who run for these seats and tear each other apart trying to rise to be governor of the most powerful state in the union. Said, how did this sleazeball get there?
He was anointed. He was anointed by Willie Brown and the power class in San Francisco. That's where all of the state's top leaders come from. Nancy Pelosi was his aunt, and his dad actually helped, William Newsom helped Pat Brown. So Jerry Brown's father, they're very tight in with the Browns from their time at St. Ignatius High School. It's a private Jesuit school in San Francisco. All the connections stem from there, and then the moneyed class and some bloodlines too. So it's really, they just basically took turns. He actually tried to challenge Jerry Brown at one point and got smacked down by the power class there, and he waited his time, bided his time as lieutenant governor until he was allowed to, run for. He ran for mayor first to San Francisco, then he became lieutenant governor, then he became governor, and it's an anointment in California.
Susan, how did he do what he did to California so quickly? It's not easy to wreck a state that's that powerful, but I'll tell you, I have to go back there once a year or so for various business things. You can see it gets worse every time. It's just slowly going down and down and down. What did he do?
So a native Californian, and I went to Washington, D.C. after college. I spent 23 years in D.C. I came back in 2017. And that was right when he was coming into power in 2018. The state had its problems, certainly under Jerry Brown. He was soft on crime. Certainly the crime spree was happening already, starting, brewing there, and the homelessness was a problem. But it all accelerated because Gavin Newsom, like I said, he does not earn what he gets. He is not used to having to perform. So he just, pretends, and he even talks about this during his Charlie Kirk podcast, where talks about it, the mask you live in, and then you have this mask on that somebody puts on you, and then you fill in the mask to live up to their expectations. It's kind of a creepy concept if you really examine it, and it's actually the name of one of his wife's gender justice documentary. So it's not like he came up with that all by himself. But yeah, it accelerated during COVID. He wrote a book about trying to make, and when he was lieutenant governor, because he was bored, he talks about how bored he was as lieutenant governor for 8 years. That said he was promising to make government more transparent and get it digitized, but it all fell apart when he became governor, and they couldn't even get the unemployment payments out the door, and there was so much fraud. It was $30 billion in fraud, largest amount of fraud in the state's history, all under his watch. And there were people, he locked down the state. He was pushing people out of work, except for, of course, Hollywood carve-outs. But he couldn't even get those people that he was pushing out of work the unemployment checks they deserved. I mean, this is just one of the many things we go into. We really examine, because I work with Peter Schweitzer's group, the top research director is my co-author, Jed McFadder, and we delve into his ties to the CCP in China. And it's really startling what he did with that, and what we believe why he did that was to get his own wine trademarked and pushed into China. And it was a personal self-dealing. This Gavin Newsom knows no bounds, because the California media do not hold him into account. We couldn't fit all of the corruption and self-dealing and bad policies into one book. It was hard to fit it all because we found so many things that hadn't been reported yet in the California media.
Did he fund a bronze statue of himself? Because I've thought about doing that for me.
Don't we all want a bronze statue of ourselves somewhere, a monument to me? Basically, if somebody else makes a bronze statue of you or carves you into Mount Rushmore, that's an honorable situation. But if you pay for it yourself, is what we found. So there, he has a bronze statue of himself in San Francisco City Hall. They scrubbed all the pictures after it came out last week because we uncovered it in the book. And he paid for it. We found that he paid for it with two of his own companies partially. One was his Plum Jack Winery, and then another was a restaurant that he owned. And it was all in the form of behested payments. And behested payments in California is like a pay-to-play scheme. It is, politicians are allowed to direct charitable corporations to give to their pet charity of choice. And in this case, Gavin Newsom directed his own companies to give to his pet charity, which was the paying for the monument to himself.
Susan, thank you so much. Come back soon. That was wonderful. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.